Hey everybody, this is my 125 gallon native tank, and this afternoon's project is going to be some basic maintenance. I'm going to do a water change and I'm going to wipe the glass down. There's a few plants that have come uprooted and have floated to the top, so I'll see if I can replant them if they're worth it, and we're just going to get in there and have a look around, see if anything else needs to be cleaned up or any maintenance done while we're in there. So this is going to be a simple before and after. We can have a little look at the tank and get a few looks at some of the specifics. If you'll see the algae growing on the wood here, notice how it's in broken sort of blotches now. Well, that's because the tilapia, as well as the mollies, are in there all the time munching on the algae. Let's see if we can find the tilapia. There's the mollies, and I do not see the tilapia in there, but that's what's going on. The tilapia is actually chewing on the algae, and it's getting thick enough now that as it's plucking the algae off, it's coming off in larger pieces, and we're actually starting to get to see a little bit of genuine algae removal as the tank begins to mature. So this is what I was kind of hoping for as we wait until springtime and I can get out and start stocking the tank a little more regularly. See, that's exactly the behavior I'm talking about. See how the tilapia back there is pecking at the wood? It does it against the glass and the rocks. It's a fantastic algae eater. It's going to be a shame to get it out of here. It's growing like a weed, though. It's really growing fast. So is the Mayan Cichlid that you just got a little glimpse of. And then, of course, I'm still not entirely sure what the mystery fish is. But they're all going to have to go pretty soon. In the meantime, they are doing their fair share of helping keep my tank clean and allow it to sort of balance out and cycle in and mature as I wait for springtime. So that's just a little look at what's going on. I did have a little bit of action and excitement between my crayfish earlier. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but it was definitely some dramatic crayfish action. So I will go ahead and attach a card right here if you are interested in watching that video. I would definitely recommend it. It was pretty exciting. So I'm going to get on with it. Again, this isn't going to be anything elaborate, just a simple before and after. So have a look at your before. And there's your after. So not a lot to talk about. All I did was what I said I was going to do. I wiped the glass down. I replanted some of those plants. I also, as usual, got my bottle of hydrogen peroxide out, and as the water level lowered and rocks and wood were exposed above the surface, I was able to gently spray them down with some hydrogen peroxide. This doesn't completely kill or eliminate the algae. It's not like I'm spraying acid on it and it just dissolves and kills it on contact. It does beat it up pretty good, though. It does kill a lot of it, but not all of it. And what happens is once it's dead, it's still in the tank and it's still on the surfaces where I killed it. So as we saw earlier in the video where you could see the algae was being picked clean by the tilapia and the mollies, the crayfish as well, you can see now it's actually a little more chewed up and gone. And what happens is as it gets damaged by the hydrogen peroxide and there's dead algal material there, the mollies and apparently the tilapia really love that, and they go after it immediately. As soon as I'd filled the tank back up, it still had air bubbles all over everything from the oxygen being released from the hydrogen peroxide. And while it was still covered in oxygen bubbles, the mollies were already pecking away at the dead algae and the loose algae that was on there. So that's always pretty effective. Again, I don't recommend using hydrogen peroxide unless you really know what you're doing. You can make a simple mistake and wind up losing a lot of fish if you don't handle it properly. I also got in and transplanted, or replanted I should say, these plants that had come loose, this rotella that had come loose, and I wedged it under that rock and I buried it under the gravel, so hopefully this time that will stay planted long enough to establish. I also found this piece of bacopa that was floating, and I did the same thing. I tucked it under a rock, I packed gravel around it, and hopefully that Bacopa will root in and start growing. You can already see the new growth that's come in on that Rotala. All the bright pink stuff is new, and the stuff that sort of has algal growth all over it and looks sort of older and more washed out is the original plant that I got. So as that roots in and grows and takes, I think it's really going to look really good. I'm happy that I've got it. Once again, I have to thank my viewer down in Florida for sending me all that stuff. I got lots of good stuff from him, and it is making the tank look beautiful. So the only issue is going to be getting those non-native fish out of the tank. And on that note, there's that little mystery fish right there. One of my viewers has identified that for me, I believe. I get many people making recommendations and suggestions as to what they think it is. And one of my viewers suggested that it was a mud sunfish. Now, I've looked up, pretty much anytime somebody suggests something, if it's not a fish I'm already familiar with, I'll look it up. And a lot of times I'll get, that's pretty close, or that could be, let's let it grow a little more and see how it develops. When I looked at a mud sunfish, a fish I'm not familiar with, they're not around here, it was spot on. It removed all doubt that I don't know what it is anymore. I'm almost positive that is a mud sunfish. And in fact, until I find out otherwise, or unless I see something that more accurately represents it, I'm going to consider it a mud sunfish. So they are sort of native to this area, but not really. I do live on the East Coast, but if you look at their native range, they actually sort of stop at one of the larger rivers that's just east of me. So despite only being about 200 miles away from the Atlantic Ocean, I'm apparently still too far west for these mud sunfish to be native around here. So that, along with the Mayan Cichlid and the Tilapia, are all going to have to come out of this tank come springtime, when I'm able to go out and start catching local fish that are here in my area, non-invasive, and I'll be able to stock it up the way I intended to, simply recapitulating a little slice of my own personal outdoors, the kinds of fish I encounter on a regular basis, the sunfish, the bass, the perch, crappie, etc., etc. We'll have to wait till spring, see what I catch, see what I bring home, and hopefully this tank is going to be a lot of fun. And on one final note, I will say you can notice I bumped my log in there and moved it over, and I've exposed rock that used to be in the shadow, and you can see where there's no algae growing on it. So I just noticed that a minute ago. I'm going to have to get in there and slide that rock, slide that piece of wood back over just an inch or two until it fits back in its nice little slot there. I don't want weird algae patterns growing on my rocks in there and everything. I want it to stay fairly stable and established. So there you go. That was a little more discussion on the tail end of that than I was anticipating, but that's not unusual for me. If you're familiar with my videos, you'll know I'm very long-winded. So thanks for watching this one. Please subscribe. That way you won't miss anything else I got coming up, because you never know what you're going to get with me. It's always something. I do have 2 videos sitting in the wings right now that I'm working on, and you don't want to miss them or anything else. So if you're subscribed, you won't. Thanks again for watching this one. This is my 125-gallon native tank. Hope to see you real soon on the next one.